Good evening, everyone, and welcome here for this wonderful session on how many of our esteemed clients here are going to be putting AI at the core of transformation. So we are very privileged to have this opportunity to be sharing a bunch of our client stories on how we work together with some of these clients and they've transformed their enterprises using AI. With me today, you're going to see a set of speakers. We're going to first invite Keisha Garcia. Keisha Garcia is with BP. She's a VP and VP for Digital and Enterprise Platforms and Systems. Following Keisha, you're going to hear Srini Upadhyay. Srini is with Transamerica, and he's head of business services. Following Srini, you're going to see we had Chaitanya, but then Chaitanya had to leave because of a personal emergency. So we're going to have Sada come over. Sada is with Hertz, and he's the SVP for platform engineering. And last but not the least is Krishna Srinivasan. Krishna is with United Airlines. He's the director of architecture, cloud, and DevOps. So before we hand over to each of these esteemed speakers and have them share their stories of how they've gone through this transformation, I want to take a minute to talk about how Infosys sees this space. So we're looking at 3 stages of transformation. We've seen a lot of our clients. We've gone through this transformation ourselves, and we're seeing a lot of our clients go through this transformation. Stage 1 is really making their enterprises more digital. How have they all embraced cloud? So we are at AWS reInvent, and a lot of us are thankful for AWS for all the capabilities that they've delivered. That's enabled our clients to be, that have made them more resilient and more scalable. The second stage of transformation is really about how they've created composable capabilities. How have they got enterprises ready for AI? So how did they get their data ready for AI? How did they build capabilities? How did they modernize all of their platforms? That's enabled them to drive a lot of business experiences. Third stage is all about all the experiences that you've seen. You're going to hear some very interesting stories from each one of them on how all of these capabilities have enabled some very interesting experiences for their customers within their enterprise and with their supply chain. So without much ado, what I want to do is to invite our first speaker, Keisha. Keisha, why don't you come on stage? Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here to talk through our journey with us. So BP is navigating one of our most profound transformations and transitions in the energy industry, balancing both reliability with sustainability, as well as leveraging technology and driving innovation to deliver energy for today and tomorrow. So BP is one of the world's leading integrated energy companies, and we operate in over 61 different countries with a workforce of over 100,000 plus people. And our heritage dates back to as far as 1908. And BP, where we are today, we're focusing today is delivering our energy safely, as well as reliably, and increasingly with our increasingly in lowering our carbon intensity. So our scale matters. And 21,200 retail sites is what we have with the scale, as well as 39,000 EV charging points and 2.4 million barrels of oil equivalent per day in our upstream production. So over a decade ago, BP set out on a bold mission that I had the privilege of working with quite a few teams to transform our digital landscape with cloud. And our cloud-first vision was back then, our footprint spanned over 8 mega data centers, hosting over 18,000 servers. And today, we've migrated 10,000 plus applications, and over 10,000 plus applications. And also, we closed 27 plus data centers across the globe, decommissioned over 15,000 servers, as well as moved over 1 petabyte of data to the cloud, turning our vision into reality. And now, more than 93% of BP's applications run in the cloud. Actually, 95% as of today. We've moved a few more. So delivering speed, resilience, as well as innovation at scale. So this journey was never just about technology. Along the way, we embraced agile, DevOps, we modernized our platforms, and we unlocked the power of data. We reduced technical debt by addressing our end-of-serviceable life. We streamlined our processes. We built the foundation for what comes next in our AI-first future. And the Cloud Transformation Program, which is what it was called, CTP, has not only modernized BP's IT estate, but it ensured zero process safety, or we also were able to get through that with zero process safety events. We strengthened our security, and we created a resilient digital core for the future. So this achievement reflects the collective effort of BP's digital teams, our businesses, our integrators, and our enablers. Our cloud journey is proof of what's possible when vision as well as action comes together. And now, as we step into the era of AI, we're ready to unlock even more potential, driving innovation, sustainability, as well as transformation for BP and beyond. So by moving to the cloud, it's unlocked all of these capabilities, and it's made what we thought was impossible possible. So the scale of our compute power is to train and deploy advanced AI models at speed, centralize and secure data platforms that enable real-time analytics and predictive insights, and modernize and develop our development environments that's faster, agile, DevOps, and continuous innovation. So our global collaboration tools that empower talent to experiment, learn, and innovate without boundaries, as well as cloud has created a culture where ideas can also take shape and move faster, teams work smarter, and the data drives every decision. It also enables our BP people to harness all of our AI capability for smarter operations, optimize our energy systems, and breakthrough solutions. So accelerating our journey towards our digital first and our sustainable future. So when I think about how we're driving innovation with AI, so with our customers and products, if I think about some of the examples, for our customers, AI is redefining what energy means. It's personal, predictive, sustainable. AI helps us forecast demand so we can deliver the right products at the right time. It also powers our smart mobility solutions, ensuring EV drives our find charging stations when they need them. And it also gives our customers the needs or the tools that track and reduce our carbon footprint. So because innovation isn't just about technology, it's about trust as well, and it's about trust with our customers. So in our P&O, our production and operations area, on the front lines of production, AI is our silent partner. It predicts equipment failures before they even happen. It's saving millions and keeping our people safe. It's optimizing drilling and refining processes. It's also squeezing the inefficiencies and reducing our emissions. Every sensor and every data point becomes a voice, and AI listens and learns and acts to make operations smarter and safer. So digital transformation is a big part of our story, and we're working with partners like Microsoft and Palantir to use AI to optimize and build digital twins, as well as for predictive maintenance and developing tech stacks for sustainable aviation fuel, as well as the energy, on the engineering side, we're developing remotely operated platforms and advanced seismic imaging to also improve our efficiency and safety. In our people and culture area, our most powerful transformation isn't in the machines, it's in our people. And AI is helping us upskill as well as upskill our workforce and turning curiosity into capability. It's also breaking down barriers, fostering diversity, as well as creating a culture where innovation thrives. So with AI, our teams collaborate faster, we share knowledge, we seamlessly make decisions with confidence, as well as because technology without people is just code, right? So, but with people, it's revolution. At BP, we're not just adapting AI, we're shaping the future in energy, as well as together we're building a world that's safer, cleaner, and we're more connected. And this is more than innovation, it's transformation. So our vision for our drivers, we accelerated our business transformation through intelligent experimentation, architectural leverage, and our close partnerships with our digital teams. And our goal is to move beyond pilots and prove measurable value first and fast, and delivering capability that's owned and scalable and production ready. The journey ahead is really our strategy is prioritizing immediate cost reduction over the next 18 to 24 months, which we've started well on that journey, while building foundational AI capabilities, as well as building those capabilities that are sustainable and that gives us a competitive advantage. So by adopting and surrounding or giving a surround and conquer approach, we will first transform our cost functions, demonstrating clear and measurable ROI, as well as drive broader solutions and adoption across our business units. Success requires building AI savvy leadership, as well as cost-focused talent, and then also pragmatic buy-build decisions. We'll operate within the data and talent, and we'll prioritize and rapid savings over slow, lengthy ROI processes, but focusing on initiatives with 18-month payback or less. We'll continuously evaluate emerging technologies through lean experiments before significant investments. And then those guiding principles, that's kind of like our North Star, is our business-driven attitude with technology doesn't lead the way. It's our people, it's vision, and vision does. Every AI initiative begins with a clear business purpose, and we're not just doing things just for the sake of doing it. We're looking at the value-focused things. We don't just chase the shiny objects, although there are times where we have to remind ourselves that, again, getting ahead of the curve is great, but again, not chasing the shiny objects, but starting with real challenges, real pain points that will solve what matters most for us. So sometimes you have to look at it with the build it and they will come mindset, but only doing that, using that mindset only for bold, high potential bets. That means when you're dealing with AI ideas that could fundamentally reshape a workflow or create a new revenue stream or unlock a step change, efficiency, something with genuine transformational upside, you sometimes do build ahead of the proven demand, but you take calculated leaps because the payoff is worth the uncertainty. And you look at it from a risk-based approach as well. So for everything else, you earn adoption the hard way. You validate the problem, you test the demand, and you prove ROI, pressure test feasibility. So with that being said, and I'm sorry I went on too fast, those are the things that we're doing at BP to help prove out all of the things that we need to do. We're looking at the routine automation ideas that must earn its business case before you build it, as I said, even though you do the build versus buy, but also on the fact of those moonshot predictive systems that could change how the entire asset class is run. We must justify building early and iterating into the demand. So, as I said, the discipline around ROI has to be there, though. So the ambition matters, but outcomes matter more. And every initiative must drive measurable impact. And we commit to tracking performance. We are committing to learning from those results, improving value. But also, because transformation without accountability isn't transformation at all, you have to be able to operate it and also track those ROIs. So our cost function first is our target finance, our HI or our HRIT for immediate improvements and bottom line. And then from a build shared infrastructure to avoid vendor lock-in and build muscle for later and strategic bets. And then also from an automation and offshoring perspective, accelerate our AI automation instead of solely relying on labor arbitrage, as well as data AI synopsis, using AI to solve our data equity or data quality, as well as issues, and not waiting for perfect data. So again, our teams are working really hard to ensure that we're working together with all of our partners to do what we can to transform and driving and allowing our people and our business goals and our business aspirations to get us there. So that is what we're doing at BP, and that is how AI is really taking the forefront, and the cloud transformation helped to get us there and set us up quite well for what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Srinivas Upadhyaya. I'm the head of business services and digital technologies for Transamerica. Been there for like about 6 years. For the first 5 years, I ran all of architecture, engineering, basically cloud as well as cloud migration. So again, super excited to be here to talk about how we are accelerating our business value using cloud and AI. Where's the clicker? So a little bit of an intro on Transamerica, right? What do we do? We offer a broad range of products, life insurance, annuities, and also retirement plans, and also some other investment products. Again, most of you are familiar with our 401k, 403b, IRA solutions. We have about close to 10.7 million customers, all within US, and about 7,000 employees. So when we think about business applications as we went through this modernization, right? There were two main factors, agility and delivering products at a faster pace. And now we are onto our AI adoption journey, right? So three main things I want to emphasize. All of our retirement record keeping ecosystem, that's about 60% of our workloads. They're working in AWS cloud. We went through a major transformation journey. We also as part of the modernization built two major data lakes. Again, one for retirement data sets and the other one for life and annuities. And that actually is helping advance whether it's BI based reporting insights or using AI, right? And we are making strides there. So this is a interesting slide, right? Again, why? Why this transformation journey, right? So there were four main strategic priorities, right? Again, our global CIO laid out: modernization, customer centricity, simplification, and scalability and security, right? So when When we think about modernization, this is all about we migrated all of our retirement workloads. We retired complete mainframe footprint. We converted to modern tech stack. I'll talk about it a little bit. And also with all of these applications in the cloud, as well as the data lake in the cloud, we're able to kind of build products faster. The other thing also, it's a great benefit, right? Tech debt. I know every company deals with it. We were able to reduce quite a bit of tech debt. So the second is when it comes to customer centricity, it's all about digital journeys. We want to really wow our customers with better UI experiences, and again with the data in the lakes, we are able to kind of take advantage of that and build more advanced insights using AI. Then the third is simplification. This is all about straight through processing, as well as automation, right? So we have about close to 300 plus kind of business services, and another 500 plus business services in the life and annuity space. So total, right? So again, you're constantly figuring out how to kind of leverage those to do straight through processing. And we have also automated all of our CI/CD DevOps, basically pipelines, right? So both from an infra and a code, so we are able to do the deployments faster, at least for the critical applications. We also invested in blue-green deployments, right? So that way we're trying to keep our application downtime to minimal. Then again, the last strategic priority, right? Again, stability, scalability, and security, right? So we are seeing improved performance. Actually, when we went through the whole batch migration, right? A lot of it is mainframe batch. It's actually running in half the time, as to what it used to be before. Again, from a scaling, we take advantage of again auto scaling capabilities. Of course, variable pricing. That's always great. And then in terms of the security, again, a lot of the security features, kind of network segmentation, again, advanced access management features, and also being able to kind of be stable, again, multi-AZ, multi-region support. We are able to take advantage of it. Just the retirement ecosystem, you can see the scope. It's about 100 to 120 applications, about 400 kind of services, and we have about 4,000 batch workloads, out of which at least 1,000 of them are kind of COBOL mainframe based, and 500 plus terabytes of data. And in terms of the mainframe, the code that was converted, it was almost close to 2.3 to 2.5 million lines of code. We transformed all of the COBOL code to Java. And again, the whole migration end-to-end, start to finish, we did it in 2.5 years, right? 2.5 years. Again, Infosys was our implementation partner. Great, I would say, partnership. So next slide. So this is an interesting slide, right? It's you can see this is nothing but technology stack, before and after. As you can see, before, pretty much older versions of Java, .NET. This is the tech debt stuff I was talking about. C, C++, Python, .NET. Older versions, or compute was VMs or physicals, but older versions of kind of VMware tech. All of the runtime technologies WebLogic, JBoss, Tomcat, you name it, right? Very old versions. And we had whole flavors of database technologies, Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, and once the migration, we kind of went through it, right? Again, we were able to take advantage of Amazon Corrado Java, upgraded versions of all of the .NET, Angular, compute, again, ECS, EKS, Fargate, Lambda, and also we upgraded a lot of our runtime platforms versions too. And from a databases, again, we are heavily leveraging RDS. I'll talk a little bit about the mainframe stuff. On the mainframe, again, on the left side, you can see, right, COBOL, KICS, JCL, DB2, again, on ZOS. So a lot of the kick screens, your batch workloads, everything was sitting on a huge mainframe box. It's like almost consuming 14,000 MIPS at any point of time. Two, we actually used AWS Blue Age. I think there's a name change. It's called AWS, Transform now, but it's it's an amazing tool. So we went through that, the entire conversion to the mainframe in less than 12 months, right? So the final cutover was on June 9th last year. We went from 14,000 MIPS to 6 or 7 MIPS just right away, right after that conversion. Again, just from a technology stack, after the conversion, right, we are leveraging, again, Amazon, Corrado, Java, all of the kick screens that were, previously run on, mainframe. We, replace them with Angular, Spring Boot, and also DB2 ZOS to DB2 Linux. That's, was our conversion path. And we are leveraging quite a bit of RDS technologies as well, right? And as I mentioned, about close to 2.5 million lines of code with the AWS Blue Age, we kind of converted it. And also in the process, right, we developed about close to 7,000 plus functional and regression test suite, right? So it's automated. Now it's part of our arsenal. So anytime there's a major release, we can actually quickly run and make sure nothing's broken. Especially for the batch, right? Because the nightly batch, that's when you're basically selling and buying mutual funds, ETFs, so ETFs and all. It's actually pretty intense in terms of how many billions of dollars move every night. So we did about close to 100 plus parallel test runs, especially for our batch workloads, with different data sets, right? We use data sets whether it's daily, weekly, your tax day data sets, your monthly, quarterly, yearly, your peak volumes, you name it, right? So this is again, we do a lot of customer reference calls and all of this stuff, references. This is a little bit of lessons learned, right? If you're going through this journey, you'll find this really useful, right? The first one is data gravity, right? Think about it. A lot of these application services, they're so intertwined, right? So, and of course, you're not going to be able to do the whole thing Big Bang just by itself. So we did about 800 releases in 2.5 years. So pay attention to data gravity. What it means is you need to understand what are the interdependencies so that you can bundle the applications logically. So that way, you don't have your database on-prem and the rest of the services in cloud. So now with the latency, you have performance issues and all this stuff, right? You need to really pay attention to it. With the Blue Age thing, when we went through this whole mass migration, they actually do something pretty cool called calibration phase, right? So what the calibration phase really is, you take a sample. You can take probably 100 bad jobs, 30, 40 kick screens. They'll run it through the calibration and they'll tell you how easy or hard it is, or for the conversion, right? So that way you can know for your entire scale what is it that you're getting into, right? That was really helpful. Like I said, testing, parallel testing. We invested quite a bit. So actually, one of the things is we did for the last mainframe migration cut over on June 9th. Prior to that, we did 3 mock run over, what we called as mock runs, right? So think about it the entire mainframe and the rest of the application services, the whole ecosystems, including the satellite databases and everything like that, we flipped in production, over a weekend, and then we used to flip back, right? So, and again, there's a lot of testing that happens. So that way, for the first mock run, when we ran it, we had about 100 bugs, right? This is after all the other crazy testing we went through. And then after the second one, we kind of ended up with maybe 60 bugs. The third one, we brought it down to almost nil. And then the final one, was the real cutover, right? So we invested quite a bit on that. The other things are again, talent upskilling. think about it, right? Like, insurance industry, a lot of times there's a lot of legacy tech folks. Invest in like, kind of training them up, but also at the same time, we had Infosys as our implementation partner. It was awesome partnership, as I said. Software rationalization, think about it this way, right? A lot of your on-prem contracts, software contracts, right? You got to really see like, how they can be translated to AWS, right? Like, so we invested, it was like almost like 6 months with working with procurement on all of that, so that we know, especially for the budgeting purposes, right? How, what that means. Communication, this is extremely important. You need to like, make sure you have alignment with your business partners, because think about it, right? It's a long journey. And along this journey, of course, they're going to continue to like build, new products and all of this stuff, right? And there are a lot of times there's collisions. You need your own blackout periods and all of this stuff. They'll say that, hey, the products are more important. We got to like, keep our revenues going and all of this stuff. So having that alignment and continuing to like, explain the benefits of like, this migration, that goes a long way. Especially like, they're the ones who are really going to help you with the UAT testing and whatnot, right? So that really helped out. Actually, one other thing I want to say is like, just in terms of how this is getting translated to like, AI, right? Again, we use Copilot, like all of our employees, like, they have Copilot for their tasks. We are heavily invested in like, kind of Amazon Q for our software developers, and we are using other techniques to like, for building the regression test cases and all of that stuff. And the best part is like, now with the data lakes in cloud, we are continuously like, trying to like, kind of hydrate those with newer data sets and all of that stuff. It's becoming so much better for us to like, kind of be on the AI journey, right? Again, it's still a journey. We have about 10 or 15 use cases that we are, taking advantage of. But most importantly, like, it's an awesome journey. We don't have to worry about the foundation, because the cloud and the data, that foundation has been established already. So again, thank you, Infosys. I know IBM, like, they helped us, like, with the ZOS DB2 to, like, DB2 Linux conversion as well. An incredible, like, Transamerica team, right? And thank you for listening to our story. I appreciate it.
A big hand to Srinivas and Geisha for job well done. Let me walk you through our journey. I'll go what happened 4 years back. I'll talk about the present, and I'll talk about the next 2 years. I don't think I can read the next 2 years, but I'll certainly try to read the next 2 years. My name is Sada Iyer, as it says. I'm the SVP of Technology at Hertz. When I joined 4 years ago, I was literally given a playbook with end of life, end of support, incidents happening on a daily basis. And guess what? I'll use a car analogy. My job was, how do I change the tires of a running car? Right? So that was the challenge that was given to me. Before I continue too much further, I work for Hertz, so I'm going to ask a quiz. Right? I'll give you 4 options. Hertz is in the car rental business. Hertz sells cars. Hertz partners with Uber and Lyft. And number 4, Hertz sells cars on Amazon. If I give you an option A, which is Hertz is a car rental company, by show of hands, how many want to raise their hands? If I tell you that Hertz does all the 4, show of hands. So did you know that Hertz actually sells cars on Amazon? So tomorrow when you go home and you're shopping for your milk and your bread and your supplies, go and shop for a car on Amazon. Again, before I go too much into it, I need to thank my team. Without my team that have stood beside me for the last 4 years, I would have not been where I am today. That's not me. Yeah. So if you look at the references that I've got on the slide, it's all about Voyage, TuneUp, the wrenching, right, the journey. But like I said, 4 years ago, where I started, we had a high cost of standing still. End of life services, end of life hardware, software, like I said, incidents happening. And we had two choices. Either we invest in the data center or we do an all-in migration to the cloud. And guess what? What did we choose? We chose an all-in migration to the cloud, right? It was not an easy feat. We had HP UX, critical applications running on HP UX. What did we do? Working with Amazon, we actually ran it on emulation software in AWS. So that's working fine. Our second challenge was, how do you scale our applications, right? I'm going to throw a number, 3,000 TPS on the front end. When you think about 3,000 TPS on the front end, it's not a big number, right? But the back end was not able to go more than 1,500 transactions per second. So our first order of magnitude was, how do we scale the backend? And that's what we did, right? That backend was extremely critical. It's running COBOL on Micro Focus Linux. Micro Focus COBOL on Linux, right? And therefore, we were able to migrate to AWS. Not only did we scale the application horizontally, but we also scaled the application from an application sharding perspective. So I'm giving you pointers in terms of what we did so you can decide on whether it's going to be helpful for you in the future. As we were doing that migration, the third one was what we call our rates ecosystem. We have one master, and on a daily basis, it's about 1.6 billion rates requests per day. So as you can imagine, we had to scale our rates ecosystem. And what's a rate? If you go to shop on Hertz.com, and you go and look for a shop, and it pulls up a given, let's say, Nissan or a Toyota, there's a rate along with it, right? That's the rate request that I'm talking about 1.6 billion rate requests per day. Yes, we were using Oracle. Yes, we are still using Oracle. And we had to figure out a way to scale, right? And we had to scale with low latency. So at any given point in time, we have about 16 to 20 read replicas running in AWS. So again, that was a migration that we had to take care of. So if you think about the journey that we did, it took about 2.5 years of all-in migration to AWS. Fast forward to today, earlier this year, you learn from your failures, you learn from your mistakes. A developer, unfortunately, he did something wrong in production environment. And guess what? It brought our production environment down. And that's the reason we built what we call blue-green stacks or active-passive environment. Now we have, in a single region, active-passive environment. With few incidents that have happened over the last few weeks, we are also planning to have multi-region stack running in AWS, right? So that's our journey. If you think about from an AI perspective, obviously we're using GitHub Copilot, we're using Bedrock, and if you think about where we're using AWS Bedrock, it's all about when a customer calls with a problem, with a complaint, we're using AWS Transcribe, we're using AWS Bedrock to figure out, okay, why is the customer calling? Right? And typically it's about, oh, where is my invoice? Or I have a flat tire, right? So we are trying to see the reasons why the customers are calling and make it easier for the customer to be able to transact with Hertz on a day-to-day basis. So where are we right now? We are in a journey to modernize legacy platforms. And let me tell you a story. About 6 months back, my CIO at that time, and we traveled about four cities in 5 days in 3 different locations. We actually met 4 partners, and each and every partner was given the same problem. Take this 10 pieces of COBOL program and tell me how are you going to convert it. This COBOL programs were running on the non-stop, right? And I think you might have heard about HP non-stop, or it's also called the Tandem. These programs were running on the non-stop. Three partners, 3 vendors gave me the typical, oh, we will do analysis, we will do design, we'll do unit testing, I'm like, no, that's not of interest. The day we walked into the Infosys office, in the first 1 hour, they showed me a working prototype, working model of the converted code, right? No presentations. I was not interested in PPTs. I wanted to see a working model, right? And that is what actually impressed us to partner with Infosys. So if you think about what we did, they have a platform called iLead. iLead helped us do the documentation. These programs have been existing for the last 20, 25 years. Right? As you can imagine, a non-stop has been in operation for the last 25 years. Documentation doesn't exist. Nobody knows why a program was written. Nobody knows how to test a migrated COBOL program, right? Nobody knows what scale to test it at. So the documentation actually helped me big time to say program A talks to program B talks to program C. It also showed me the database dependencies, the table dependencies, right? So in one sheet of paper, I could now see that a given program, what it was dependent on, as well as the tables. So obviously we are at a part of a journey where we are migrating, we are about 6 months into a journey. Without the iLead platform, I think we were taken about 4 years to convert. With the iLead platform, I think we are targeting about 18 months. We're expecting production drops every month starting now. With our development complete by end of March, we are going to spend a significant amount of time in shadow testing, right? Making sure that the data in production, in the non-stop environment, data in the converted actually matches. And until we do shadow testing, and then only then give it to the users to test it, we'll not plan to go live. But as of now, all indicators are we are on track to go live by end of Q3. And that's a critical timeline for us because of our contract reasons, right? So we are marching towards it. If you look at the last bullet I've said, it's a partnership-driven model. Right? We didn't want to go to a vendor that were going to be task takers. We wanted some thought leadership. Maybe I got lucky. I got a good team of architects. I got a good team of test people that were actually came with the thought leadership, which is why we are partnering with Infosys on this journey. So if you think about what's next for us in terms of summary, it's calling reading the old manuals, which is reading the old COBOL codes, right? It's talking about writing. So not only did the iLead platform did the reverse engineering, not only did the iLead platform did the discovery and the dependencies, it also did the forward engineering. Right? And the forward engineering adheres to a template. The template is based on your specifications, right? If you say, these are my coding standards, these are my coding guidelines, it adheres to that template, right? Which is extremely critical. So in terms of what I think the future holds for us, I personally think that all the things from an AI perspective, what are the things that we don't like to do? Number one, documentation. There's no engineer in this world who will like to do document. I think we can probably have an agent that does documentation. What's the second thing that we don't like to do? Testing. Right? We think we write the best code, right? Guess what? I'm thinking there's going to be an agent that's going to help us test. Third, observability. Right? We don't like to implement metrics, right? And obviously integration with PagerDuty. I think we can have an agent for doing that, right? So those are the areas that I'm exploring. Also from an incident response standpoint, look at the amount of logs we're generating. And I'm anticipating an agent that's going to help me mine through all my logs and be proactive about when an incident is going to happen. Right? So when I think about the possibilities, yes, there's this fear about AI replacing jobs. Right? I think that it's a time for us to go deep in a specific skill, because AI can replace general skill set, but not deep skill sets. Right? And managing how many of you are knowledgeable about EKS? Amazon EKS? Show of hands. Right? Yes, AWS did a pretty good job of keeping the control plane out of your side, right? And you're only dealing with pods and deploying on nodes. But when things go wrong, guess what? You need your kubectl commands, right? So you need your expertise, whether it's a services, whether it's a node port service, ingress service. You need to know your technical knowledge to be able to interpret what AI is telling you, right? So in closing, thanks to my team, thanks to Infosys for the partnership. The thing that I always ask myself is, whenever you have a challenge at hand, whether it's test automation, whether it's documentation, ask the question, what can AI do for you? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Krishna Srinivasan, a director at United, responsible for enterprise architecture, cloud, and DevOps. And before I get into this, I just wanted to show of hands, how many of you guys flew United for coming to reInvent? Thank you very much, guys. For guys who haven't flown on United, please try. You'll have a wonderful experience. So as many of you know, United is one of the largest airline, or not one of the, it's the largest airline in the world. And our mission every day is to connect people, unite the world. And like we do this at a very massive scale. And like we fly about like more than 2,000 aircrafts to 360 destinations, and like carrying over 175 million customers every year. That's about 500,000 customers every day. And then like we have about 107K employees, talented professionals that are working hard every day to make sure our customers are getting to their destinations safely. So on the system side, the technology landscape is complex and very intricate, right? So we have complex integrations of our modern systems with our legacy systems. We have a big legacy footprint. So we have a global infrastructure in airports, data center, cloud, all over the place. And orchestrations through 4,000 APIs, 300 business events, and like we're registering transactions, about 5 billion hits on our digital channels and 1 billion events on the back-end operational systems, right? So that's the scale. And this is what enables United to be able to deliver that exceptional customer service that each and every one of you deserve, right? All of our customers deserve. And United is demonstrated remarkable like adaptability, like reinventing itself multiple times through a lot of the technology revolutions, through economic upheavals, like the pandemics, like global events, and each and every time coming out, establishing itself as the pioneer in commercial aviation. So just like how like we saw Sada use some of the car lingo, the car rental lingo, I'm going to use the airline lingo, right? So our flight plan for digital transformation started with cloud first, right? So we started looking into cloud first for building any new capabilities because we knew it was going to help us innovate, be nimble, quickly react to changes, and more like importantly, run a reliable operations. So very quickly we realized that like we need to start like automating repetitive tasks so that we could kind of like make the migrations, modernizations more efficient and effective. And then like we started bringing in modern integration platforms, like connecting these capabilities, centralizing the data across all of our business domains, crew, operations, finance, HR. And this set the stage for us to be able to run AI, ML models, and we started focusing on use cases for optimizing our flight plan, for like fuel, like how much fuel we put on the planes, customer notifications. And then like we started seeing ourselves transform into this AI first enterprise where we started looking at AI, embedding AI into everything that we do, right? Like everything we do, not only like everything we do, how we do too. We wanted to start infusing AI into that. And now like we are kind of like unlocking the power of agentic AI for the compounding value we're going to be getting out of like this agentic AI as well as the human in the loops systems, right? So when we started the journey to cloud, obviously like coming from a data center organization, right? Like it was with a heavy mindset we got in there. Very quickly we learned to start leveraging the AWS well-architected framework, the standards, best practices, to start implementing it the more like the cloud way, right? But then, so we started seeing varying implementations, right? Like different tool sets being used, different like deployment strategies being used, right? Like there was like a lot of things all over the place. That's where like we engaged a strategic partner like Infosys to help us start creating the building blocks, right? Like the foundational blocks for how we would enable the teams to be building cloud workloads in a much reliable, secure way, right? So what we did is we created a tool set, right? Like we coined this program as Cloud 3.0. Basically, started creating the reference architectures for the design patterns. We started templatizing them, and like we made this open source for teams to contribute back to this. So that helped with adoption. And then like we started building starter kits, so teams could take this to kind of set up their environment and start getting into kind of coding, right? And then we started giving them all these power packs for observability, for like doing their recovery, like region failovers. And also we wanted to embed like the practices, so we started building kits for the teams to be able to integrate chaos testing as part of their pipeline, right? So this pretty much helped us. Like accelerate our transformation to cloud. So today we have 60%, more than 60% of our like mission critical, business critical workloads in cloud, and also like teams using the starter kits were able to get it done much faster, 15% faster, going from design to development to deployment. And then like this also had a very positive impact on our MTTR, and we were able to see a 7% reduction, which we were able to attribute to these like this resiliency, the recovery solutions that we had to quickly recover service moving to another region, right? So this basically helped us set the stage, right? So not only we started building consistently, but we started building faster, very secure, reliable, scalable workloads. And this basically kind of set the foundation for us to be able to layer the AI strategy on top of it. So our strategy on AI is everyday AI. Equip our employees with AI capabilities so that like it helps boost the productivity and helps them with making decisions, right? And then like start embedding AI in all of our like design, development, process improvements in the life cycle of our products and services. And then evolutionary, right? So continue to evolve this, start like looking for the next horizon, intelligent systems, look at like do some experiments and keep innovating, right? And so, and how are we enabling this, right? So yes, the strategy is great, but how are we enabling this? Following the path of Cloud 3.0, we started building this AI ML platform and providing a toolkit for the teams to be able to start like looking up like models that's already available for them, giving them an UI to help create the workflows for their use case, or provide them one-click solutions to convert their APIs to MCPs or like for agents, and then like add in all the observability part of it to detect like model drifts, auto restraining, and give it all as part of the platform so the teams would be able to focus more on building these agents for their use case or leveraging the agents, existing agents for like their use case to start delivering value for the business. So what we had seen, the benefits out of that is application teams were able to build their agents for the use case, RAG models, like their MCPs, autonomous agents, whatever, right? So they were able to build this like from, the time got reduced from weeks to days, right? So we saw that 80% improvement in teams being able to kind of quickly churn out like what they need and trying it out. And today we have more than 50 plus models running in our platforms, and about 200 of our applications, like 10% of our applications like having like AI capability. And so what is the value for the business, right? Like these are some of the use cases, like successful use cases, success stories, where like we had seen AI being put to use to solve a very specific problem, and was done in a very quick way, right? The contact centers, the team, they launched a care copilot, a customer care copilot, which could help in looking into the cases that like we get submitted by the customers through the portal or through sending an email. So that we had this AI agent start like looking into these emails and start looking at how they've been solved in the past, how the service agents were able to address it, and start like responding to that, right? So we saw like the resolution time coming down, and like now today we are like able to resolve like issues in like 2 times faster. And another success story is the flight updates. Whenever the flight gets delayed, you would have seen getting notifications saying your flight is delayed. So we used to create those notifications very manually, and on a bad day, we were able to do that for 15% of our delayed flights, because like there are like people sitting and looking into all of the systems, finding out what really happened, and curate that story and send it out. But today we have like AI agents doing that, and we are able to send it out for 50% of our flights. And also we are getting into sending more personalized messages, right? Saying like, hey, your flight is delayed, but don't worry about your connection, you're going to be able to make it. So we're able to get it from a flight level to a passenger level notifications. And on the technology side, we are able to leverage AI, right? Like running in these platforms for like code assist, code development, code fixes, testing, and we are already started like 15% efficiency in our the development time, right? So again, so what's the journey? The next step in our journey is to push the boundaries of this AI, look into frontier models, so align with our like data, domain, language, and start looking at agentic efficiency through multi-purpose architecture, and also like start looking at autonomous agents which could take decisions like that the humans would do, right? So this is basically kind of set us up to start reimagining our business in a much bigger, bolder way. So I would like to thank Infosys for this opportunity, and I want to give it back to Gopal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I know this is probably the last session of the day. I want to take a moment to thank each of our speakers, Keisha, Srini, Sada, and Krishna. Amazing stories, fantastic transformation. We've seen each of them embrace cloud to create scalability and resilience. They've modernized their applications. They've gotten their data ready. They're all ready for delivering amazing experiences to each one of us. So all of these companies touch us every day. They touch our lives every day, and we are really looking forward to seeing amazing experiences being generated. Thank you again. Thank you for being here. We're going to be out here for a few more minutes in case you've got questions. Otherwise, we hope to see some of you at our reception happening starting at 6 o'clock in the evening. Thank you again for coming here. Thank you for each of our speakers for being here. Thank you for the partnership. Thanks, AWS, for this opportunity. Thank you.